What's good, y'all? It's your boy Ross back at again with another video. So I'm going to check out Monday Night Raw from Hell, 2018 through 2019. Some dark times for Monday Night Raw, man. This was around the time period where I wasn't even watching the show on a regular, to be honest with you, because they were a lot of times a whole bunch of misses, man. There was barely anything on there worth checking out, and if you did check it out, it was like maybe one or two things out of a 3-hour show, and everything else was just like, what is this on my television? These were the dark days. It feels good to be able to say I've been watching Monday Night Raw consistently more in the Triple H era, and that's a good thing. You know, watching the weekly episodic shows and feeling like there's at least a few things on there that's worth your time is it's a good thing to be able to say that. But 2018, 2019, no. Dark days. We really have came from some horrible places. So we're gonna check this out. Y'all, a lot of y'all been hitting me up to check this out by the homie. I'm gonna give the proper shout out. Super Kick Studios. It's been a minute since I checked out one of his vids. Y'all been hitting me up crazy on Twitter to check this out. This is what we're gonna do. It's damn near 40 minutes, so we're gonna get right into this. We're not even gonna waste any time. Let's get right into the thing, man.
In 2025, WWE's flagship program Monday Night Raw will make the move to Netflix, leaving standard cable and making its way onto one of the most popular video-on-demand platforms in the world. And naturally, with a huge move like that, with something that hasn't been seen in the wrestling world before, comes a lot of excitement. Triple H said that the show will no longer be censored and they'll have more freedom with the content that they can air. Even though the move hasn't happened yet, there's intrigue on how the show will look aesthetically. How will it differ from the standard Raws we have now? Will it be commercial free? And just how unhinged will the show get? This year, we've already had our fair share of craziness happen on the Red brand. The big peak points being the March 25th episode where the final boss murdered Cody Rhodes to end the show and had the entirety of the wrestling world buzzing because the segment was absolutely epic. Also, the June 17th episode where the Wyatt Six debuted and murdered everyone. So I guess if you close Raw with a cliffhanger that nearly kills someone, you have a winner. Anyways, the complaint for Raw since it moved to 3 hours has always been the runtime. Oftentimes in many years it's felt like a chore to sit through, and if you fill something up with good content, then it's a different story. But at times the show has been at the absolute bottom of the barrel and just nothing has been going on. No time was that more evident than 2018 and 2019. Raw was quite literally the most nothing happening show you could possibly consume. Right now, if you look at Monday Night Raw, there's different elements to keep your eyes on, and that's happening on the weekly. Progression happening with characters, the rise of Braun Breaker, the Punk and Drew McIntyre storyline. The Intercontinental Championship division is finally alive. I know it's not for everyone, but the cinematic way in which Bo Dallas's group is being presented. So on the weekly, there's something for you to sink your teeth into, and the booking doesn't feel compulsive, even though it's far from perfect, and Triple H has his crutches that he always reverts to. However, in these 2 years, nothing was happening on Raw. Raw was so downright nauseating that even the hardest of hardcore WWE fans couldn't defend nor stomach this show, a time where viewership on the weekly was hitting new lows. For anyone who wasn't watching at the time, I'm sure the first thing you think is there's no way it could have been that bad. Right? Maybe it's just the normal YouTuber hyperbole where everything is magnified and it actually wasn't that bad.
It was.
I'll put it to you like this. By the end of 2019, these 2 years featured 8 of the 10 lowest rated Raws of all time. On the weekly, fans were given a 3-hour empty calorie serving, repeat matches, boring storylines, and zero character progression, with huge pitfalls in what happened to stars that fans wanted to see.
Hey, here's the thing. There were some good things on the show. There were, but those good things didn't last long. They didn't really do what the fans wanted with those certain ideas. So you were kind of just stuck with whatever Vince wanted. That's what you were going to get. So the good things that you did like about the show usually would end up getting killed off. Momentum of a favorite wrestler of yours that you want to see go somewhere gets killed off, and meaningless feuds. Like, it was pointless. So you were stuck with, yes, I like this good thing that's on the show, but I got to sit through 3 hours to get to it. And even though it is great that what we're seeing, it's probably not going to last that long. That's kind of what it was.
at the top of the card, especially those who organically got over or had any sense of hype coming out of NXT. It seemed like every Monday the show was labeled as the worst episode yet, a week after that same headline had been made about the previous Raw. I want to take you back to a time where nothing was happening on Raw. I want to take you back and look through some of the most controversial storylines, some big time fumbles, and the mess that was on Monday nights. So grab some food, a drink or two, and let's relive Monday Night Raw from 2018 to 2019, or as I'm calling it, Monday Night Raw from Hell.
Oh, man, we're going back down memory lane, and not in a good way, y'all. Prepare yourselves.
So where were we to start 2018? Jason Jordan was Raw Tag Team Champion alongside Seth Rollins after he was revealed to be Kurt Angle's long-lost son the year previous. Nia Jax was in love with Enzo Amore, and your premier rivalry was Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, and Jason Jordan taking on Curtis Axel, Bo Dallas, and The Miz. Meanwhile, the world champion Brock Lesnar was nowhere to be found and was essentially holding the Universal Championship hostage. That's a quick lay of the land, but our problems really escalate after WrestleMania 34. In 2024, WrestleMania felt like the finale to a killer WWE season, that everything after the show was going to be new. New champions, storylines resolved, and it was the closest thing to a reset button that you could get, as should be the case once WrestleMania is done. But here, Mania underwhelmed big time. So to change things up, WWE ran the Superstar shakeup, and making his way to become a star. The move to Raw could be a great reboot for his character and career. But boy, oh boy, we didn't see the incoming tsunami. This man wasn't just going to be a part of Monday Night Raw, he was going to take over Monday Night Raw. The overarching theme was Kurt Angle was the general manager and Stephanie McMahon was watching his every move. Anytime something goes wrong, it's Kurt's fault, and wrestlers are using his lack of management skills to their advantage. None more than the man who'd eventually shave his head and become the Constable. A few months into Corbin being there, we found out that he went to WWE HQ and Stephanie has appointed him as Constable of Raw. He became Kurt Angle's sidekick.
This was so stupid, bro. That's the best they could come up with. Constable of Raw, bro. Ugh. At least when they did the whole Stone Cold being like the sheriff of Monday Night Raw, people loved Stone Cold. We knew he wasn't going to be able to be in the ring as much, but this was a way to keep him and the fans engaged. People loved Stone Cold. No one cared about Baron Corbin. And then you put him in this role, no one cared even more. So,
and cut the exact same promo every single week. Give me my respect, I'm here to help you, the Constable will take no BS from you. Then in the summer of 2018, he became the acting general manager of Raw. Now, I don't know if you guys remember this, but the report coming out was that he was seen as attractive from the female fan base, and Vince McMahon absolutely loved that. So you essentially have a mid-card heel running around as Raw's top bad guy.
Didn't know
He's
that.
putting himself in title matches, he's in top storylines against Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins, and the show starts with the same long-winded monologue of nothingness. But hold on, we're just getting started, because Corbin was just a piece of this messy puzzle. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce you to Bobby Lashley. If you take nothing from this video, I want you to keep in mind that this dude right here was able to overcome what could have been career-crippling storylines to become a multiple-time WWE champion. In 2 years, he had easily two of the worst storylines in the company's existence. You have Lashley making his return, and the goal is to reintroduce him to a wider WWE audience. Who is he? What can he do? And most importantly, why is he back? Naturally, when someone looks like they can destroy you with four fingers, that's the direction you take. Instead, Bobby is reintroduced as a very happy-go-lucky guy who just loves his family. He sits down with Renee Young and he says that all his life he's been all about family. The ones he holds closest are his three sisters. Lashley tells us that his sisters used to take him into the woods, tie him up, and leave him there for hours.
It's a miracle he overcame this horrible storyline. It is a true miracle. And it's a miracle that Vince was the one that helped him overcome this horrible storyline by actually putting the WWE Championship on him. Vince approved this. and then end up putting the WWE Championship on him. It's crazy. It's crazy.
What went through Vince's head to associate Lashley and getting tied up in a forest, I honestly don't want to know. Now I present you Lashley's first rivalry back. Sami Zayn, a man who wasn't exactly living up to the trajectory that a lot of us had for him when he was done in NXT. Sami came out and told us that he was going to expose Lashley because he's annoyed that Bobby gave him a very serious case of vertigo, and even more annoyed that Lashley decided to make his return to the WWE the same night that he came back to Raw. Sami is also annoyed that Lashley is copying the hat that he wears. Actual words written by a WWE writer. I'm mad at you and I want to fight you because you copied my hat. Sami said that he was going to expose Lashley, that he hopped on Facebook, and Lashley's sisters have a story to tell. So what is this exposing that he's going to do? Does he have a secret child like Kurt Angle? Was he the one who actually stabbed John Cena in the nightclub? Was he the one who cream pied Kevin Owens? No, instead, we get an all-time awful segment, a segment that doesn't get ripped on nearly enough as it should. Bobby Lashley and his three sisters. If you've been away from the WWE or you haven't watched this, you need to go watch this segment for just how cringe-inducing it is. Because no words, no clever puns, no script, nothing will be able to describe how...
This was just awful, bro. Just, oh my God. Oh. Like I said, dark days.
Asinine this segment was. See, Sami wants to expose Lashley as a jerk, so he brings out three men dressed in drag who are supposed to be Bobby's sisters, and they explain that they each have a comforting object. There's a broom, an army hat, and a towel. The crux of it is that Lashley didn't actually love his sisters, but was instead abusive, so they each used those objects to protect and defend themselves from the evil wrath of Bobby Lashley. The delivery, the believability, and the basis of this was terrible. Fans online ripped into it, so Sami comes out the next week and WWE essentially admits defeat. Sami says that he's seen the reaction on social media, that people described it as brutal and cringeworthy, and he's forced to tell us a shocking revelation. Those, in fact, were not Lashley's sisters, but men Sami hired to act as Bobby's sisters. That's the low point of this story, but forgotten is how Sami displayed Bobby's inspirational Instagram quotes on screen, saying that he sent him an anonymous message as a fan, and Bobby replied with a link to his fan club. Then Sami proceeds to question whether or not Bobby was actually in the army, so he forces him to do an obstacle course. WWE, of course, runs tribute to the troops as they have a pretty good relationship with those who serve the country, but they also have a relationship, or did, with the Be a Star campaign, the anti-bullying platform that attempts to send a good message to children and teaches them that they should treat everyone the same. So, as we move to New Orleans for WrestleMania, WWE ran a storyline where Alexa Bliss was making fun of Nia Jax's weight. And a feel-good storyline like that, alright. The bullied overcomes the bullier, fair, makes sense, I've seen much worse. But after Nia Jax wins the Women's Championship at WrestleMania, later on in this story, the bully essentially wins. WWE then debuts Alexa Bliss's Moment of Bliss. This is framed very similar to the Be a Star promos. Alexa tells us the story of a time where she gave a homeless person the rest of her burrito bowl, but Nia Jax stole it and, quote, gobbled it all down right in front of her. All this while this sad melodramatic music is playing behind her. Before it evolved into the little lounge segment on the stage, this is what a Moment of Bliss was. On episode 2, Alexa's story time is about the time that she and Nia went to Disney World together, and Nia made fun of Alexa by offering her the children's menu, all while she gobbled down turkey legs. I think you understand.
This is cold, bro. I ain't gonna lie to you. I know a lot of y'all not fans of Nia, but that's cold. That's a real story. They just decided to do, bro. It's fucking cold.
And what the creative team was trying to get at, if the outcome was Nia winning the rivalry, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But Alexa cashed in the Money in the Bank a few months later, proving that sometimes the bully does get
win.
the last laugh.
Yeah.
I guess. But this wasn't it for the Raw Women's Division in 2018. A majority of this summer was spent in this really long and drawn out stage of getting Ronda Rousey her first title win, and that made everything else suffer big time. On most Mondays, you'd find a slap together match consisting of Mickie James, Ember Moon, Dana Brooke, Tamina, Natalya, Nia Jax, and Alexa Bliss. Meanwhile, two of their biggest stars spent a majority of the year in this really strange storyline where Bayley and Sasha Banks one week would turn on each other before the next week, getting into these weird heated couples debates about why their friendship just couldn't last, each of them taking time to tell the other their flaws and how much they dislike the other woman for a majority of the year. And when it felt like we finally had our big moment with Bayley turning on Sasha, they walked it back with Bayley not justifying her actions, and the two got sent to counseling with Dr. Shelby. So your women's division is a complete mess, your world champion is nowhere to be found, Baron Corbin is littered everywhere on the show, you had the chance to do some damage with the superstar shakeup, that completely flopped. How else are you filling these 3 hours? Well, here's the pool that WWE is mixing and matching on the weekly. Bobby Roode, Chad Gable, Dolph Ziggler, Baron Corbin, Jinder Mahal, Mojo Rawley, No Way Jose for some reason, Kurt Hawkins, who at one point wrestled James Harden, not that James Harden, this James Harden. Then you have Bray Wyatt and Matt Hardy in a random tag team match, all while Elias does a concert on the weekly. Now, I love Elias, he's extremely entertaining and I think he's underappreciated, but what I'm trying to say is you could make out how structured this show was. They were mixing and matching the same talents over and over, and it comes back to what I said off the top, so much filler. But through all of this, there's gotta be one guy who's the company's top attraction. There's gotta be someone who's in rivalries that are so strong they compensate for the abysmal television that the company is presenting. There's gotta be one guy,
PTSD. Right? Oh, man.
Here comes the big dog.
Oh,
the big dog. The
man.
big dog. The big dog. The big dog.
You want me to say that every time? Because I said it a shitload of times tonight.
I think this story is pretty well documented, but you can't talk about Monday Night Raw during this time and not talk about Roman Reigns. Through controversy, through constant vitriol, through everything, WWE refused to admit defeat with the Roman Reigns big dog character. But it was this imposter syndrome that the WWE and Roman Reigns had, because by label and exposure, he was the top guy. But there was always a backlash attached to him. People saw him as the corporate experiment that the WWE just refused to change. The whole big dog run is a story for another day, but when you have this polarizing character and you're not exactly hitting with him, it makes things a bit more painful when every week he's walking out and you're told, this is the guy. This is the guy. What makes things worse is his storylines were no good. First off, on the road to WrestleMania, we got Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns main eventing for a second time. Long story short, they made Roman the conquering babyface whose goal was to bring the championship back to Raw from the clutches of the evil part-timer Brock Lesnar. In principle, great, but they tried to over-manufacture this thing. Suspensions, they tried to give him that badass vibe that needs to be organic. It was the same thing they'd been trying for 3 years now, but WWE...
It didn't work. They were trying to. You knew it was going to happen. No one wanted to see this main event. It didn't work. It didn't work at all. They tried.
Had Roman lose to Brock. Then they had a rematch at the Greatest Royal Rumble, which Roman lost again. So you're at the point where you have this guy who the fans are divided on, and you just keep teasing and teasing and extending it for longer and longer, and you keep delaying the inevitable to the point where when he finally won the championship, it was more like, did we really have to go through all of that? During this, he also got into a rivalry with Samoa Joe, this had big time potential.
This was really interesting, and they still fucked it up.
The crux of the matter was that Samoa Joe was making fun of Roman because he comments is Roman beating Brock at SummerSlam. When these two main evented Backlash, fans were not having it. They were leaving early and there was no meat on the bone with this story. Fans did not care to see this as a main event. What I'm trying to get at is now you look at Roman Reigns, he's got aura, there's so much importance in all the little things that he does. Here, You guys remember that one time where John Cena called Roman Reigns a financial failure? He talked about how it took him X amount of years to finally get to where WWE wanted him to be. John Cena's words are very true. WWE believed he was the guy. Fans did not. After this, he moved into a rivalry with Jinder Mahal. At this point, the company tried so very hard to make fans sympathetic towards him by saying that he can't contend for the WWE Championship. It was extremely contrived, but it was made worse because it just didn't click. In the very slow journey back to Lesnar, we also got Bobby Lashley versus Roman Reigns, which could have been monstrous. But it comes back to the problem with Raw at this time. They fumbled the rivalries. Nothing about this felt like two big-time guys going at it. It was just a wall for Roman to kick down before winning the Universal title at SummerSlam, which he did. To avoid backlash, they made it more convoluted by having the red herring of Strowman possibly cashing in his Money in the Bank. Roman won, and I kid you not, these guys cut the SummerSlam feed so quick. So in short, that's the strange path of WWE's top guy at the time. But okay, we're in August, Roman is finally world champion, let's get going with Raw. Well, Raw didn't really get better. Roman had to vacate his championship due to circumstances out of his hands. The WWE at this time had put the Shield back together because they needed something to click on Monday nights. Their second reunion in as many years, be it a ratings grab or whatever, it didn't last long. The night Roman vacated, Ambrose turned on Rollins, and oh brother, there's this just perfectly personified WWE Raw in 2018.
They had something with the Ambrose turn into, and they fucked it up again. Like I said, they would have something good, and you're like, okay, we got something, and then they would fuck it up. I'm like, oh.
This man proceeds to become a germaphobe who burns his Shield vest, and he's cutting this promo on Rollins in which he says that Roman got exactly what he deserved. With the character, they made him tell everyone that they smelt really bad, and then on maybe the most awful Raw of the year, Dean Ambrose gets an injection in his ass. This Raw also featured Elias and Bobby Lashley in a no DQ match, The Revival versus the Lucha House Party in a Lucha House Party rules match, Ronda Rousey and Natalya brawling with the Riot Squad, Drake Maverick stealing Bobby Roode's robe and then putting it in the toilet and pissing on it, No Way Jose versus Jinder Mahal, and Finn Balor versus Drew McIntyre and Baron Corbin on one episode of Raw. Not to mention that Ambrose would later rock up with a
My God. Never forget. Dean Ambrose had a fake Bane mask, essentially. Just never forget, bro.
SWAT team and a gas mask. Seriously, if not evident by now, the writing of this show was a huge failure. It felt like everything was happening out of the blue and nothing mattered. Week to week, things were changing without any given justification. By year's end, Raw was the most nothing of nothing burgers. We got Bobby Lashley, who now found Lio Rush and decided to point his ass into the camera for reasons that we'll never know. We had jokes like Drake Maverick wetting himself, so it was the authors of piss.
You're in trouble now because what? You're in!
Heath Slater became Baron Corbin's personal referee because he got kids. After Natalya's dad, Jim Neidhart, passed away, Ruby Riott tells Natalya that she needs a counselor before revealing a table with Jim's face on it. Barn burners like Bobby Roode versus Connor from the Ascension, Bailey versus Alicia Fox. What happened on the Christmas episode, you might ask? Mr. McMahon to Claus revealed the new Women's Tag Team Championships. Braun Strowman confronted Paul Heyman by calling him Heyman the Red-Nosed Advocate. And then Baron Corbin versus Seth Rollins. Weeks before this match, Seth Rollins had came out and echoed the sentiments of WWE fans by saying that Raw was a complete disaster and it all had to do with Baron Corbin. And it felt like there was some truth to the way he was spitting this, talking about underutilized talents and how the morale...
You see how they scripted that, but it's not Baron Corbin's fault. It's the people back there running the damn show. This is depressing. I ain't gonna lie to you. People be saying, I don't know how people can be saying like, oh, Raw is not that good. What? the Raw we have now is leagues better than what we were getting a few years ago.
Morale was at an all-time low backstage. So you could see that WWE knew that they were doing something wrong. So what happens? The entire McMahon administration comes out and they basically admit defeat. We've seen just how bad it's been and now we'll fix it. We haven't been listening to the audience, we've been suffocating the superstars, and now things are going to change. But also when you apologize, that apology is only valid if you commit to fixing things and not making the same mistake. Plus, this was like the 4th time we'd heard this speech.
Yeah.
So as we moved on to 2019, how much changed? Well, not that much. The year started off with a lot of the same. Baron Corbin littered everywhere. Mojo Rawley was locked up in a room and this gimmick went nowhere, so it was just weeks wasted. Elias concerts, Lashley versus Balor, and we were back to square one with Brock Lesnar as the brand's top champion and nowhere to be found. The road to WrestleMania I thought was strong. On the Raw side, you had Becky Lynch's rise, Triple H and Batista was the nostalgia rivalry, and then you had Seth challenging Brock Lesnar for the Universal Championship. Much like the previous year, when all was said and done after WrestleMania, Raw went full experimental and
this was fun. That WrestleMania had some good stuff about it. Obviously, Kofi Mania, Seth getting the job done in like the first match of the night. You know, the whole, even though the Becky Lynch situation got convoluted with Charlotte Flair being in the mix. But there was some good stuff on this WrestleMania.
It just became weird. A major thread throughout this video is the curse of the Universal Championship. Unfortunately, nothing seemed to go right, and then Seth Rollins came along. The perfect guy to build Raw up again. Literally, he fell into their lap, and then everything fell apart. Shout out Zebrahead. So in 2018, Seth Rollins wins the Intercontinental Championship, and he tries so very hard to be a glimmer of light on Mondays. Puts on banger matches, tries to squeeze out the best of whoever he was going against, and contrasting Roman Reigns, since Seth was more so bubbling under the surface, the mega push Roman was getting, Seth was better suited for that. Essentially, what they were trying to do with Reigns, having him be the person of the people and trying to get the championship back to Raw, was better served with Seth. They had a chance to wash out all the bad, hit a reset button, but that's what makes what came next so much more painful. The title reign kicked off with a bang with a solid rivalry against AJ Styles heading into Money in the Bank. Rollins then spent the next few weeks waiting for Brock Lesnar to make a decision on who he'd cash in on, because remember the thing with Boombox Brock was he had no idea that Money in the Bank had a 1-year time cap on it. The problem for Rollins' reign was a lack of quality opponents. Actually, scratch that, the opponents he was presented. You could have had him in a program against Samoa Joe, who was busy chasing the US Championship, or Drew McIntyre, who was busy being Shane's heavy. Don't worry, I'm getting to that. His opponent was Baron Corbin, and WWE didn't seem to have a direction with what they wanted to do next because they kept Brock Lesnar in the fold. We get a rematch between Corbin and Rollins at Stomping Grounds, with the big tease being a mystery special guest referee. That person ends up being Lacey Evans, who was feuding with Becky Lynch. Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins were the 1 and 2s for WWE this year. They were the 2 most popular superstars on the brand, and they'd also revealed that they were dating one another. Once WWE got their hands on this and brought that relationship to TV, oh brother, they decided to tell us a copious amount of times that Seth and Becky were dating, and instead of being the cool, badass underdog, Seth Rollins became the man's man, which didn't help either of the two considering how hot they were. Particularly, this impacted Seth Rollins, who the company wanted to present as more cool. There was a report that came out that WWE didn't really see it with Seth Rollins. They wanted him to be cooler. They wanted him to have more of a badass vibe to him. They wanted a badass factor for him and thought that Becky Lynch would help. They have no idea what to do with the character. Anyways, Brock Lesnar cashed in the Money in the Bank in a very pointless cash-in to win the Universal Championship, and these two had a match at SummerSlam, which was epic. But on the road to this rematch, they tried a little bit too hard to make Seth Rollins sound cool. They tried a little bit too hard to make Seth Rollins into what they...
because at this point, Brock was just killing this guy. Like, he was legitimately killing Seth Rollins. I mean this wholeheartedly. Leading up to SummerSlam, I remember this. I was like, I'm kind of over this, bro. Get this over with. It wasn't that what they were doing was bad. It was just so forced, and they were overdoing it. I was like, and it didn't help with some of the stuff that Seth was saying on social media. It wasn't helping his case with the fans either. It was just not that good.
They thought he should be. They had him deliver some cringe dialogue and assume that if Brock Lesnar just beats him up a bunch, that Seth is going to look like a badass because he refuses to stay down.
Brock Lesnar! What? If you're gonna do it, put some steak on it, because I'm about to go out there and burn it down!
And then things got worse, because after he won the Universal Championship back and had a brief feud with Braun Strowman, Seth Rollins met the Fiend. In these years of nothingness,
and this is where things, you think they go in such a great direction, and they do. They do. This was the one thing that fans were really, really, really invested in. They had been doing those little vignettes with him, like the Mr. Roger vignettes. It was good. And then they decide to book him in a Universal Championship match against Seth. And there's they booked themselves in a corner here, bro. And y'all know how this ended. Oh, man, did they fuck this up.
Emerges this cool supernatural retool of Bray Wyatt, something that was dollar signs for the WWE.
Money.
And as fans, for us, it was so exciting. It was something that we hadn't seen in a long time or ever before. Their next supernatural character was right there, and all they had to do was play the slow game. All they had to do was be very meticulous with what rivalries he was in.
Yes.
But WWE immediately put him into the Universal title picture, and that was the beginning of the end.
Yeah, because there was nothing you can do. People were already not giving it. They were losing their interest in Seth. You put him in the hottest thing going on right now in WWE at the time, and Bray coming back once again with a dope character, dope gimmick. Everyone's hyped about Bray. You put him in a feud with Seth. There's only one way the fans want this to end. You would have to have him win. You would have to. And they fucked it up.
Rollins, the babyface in this, went to burn down the Firefly Funhouse because this was a time where WWE took things a little bit too literal. Oh, burn it down? Let's have him actually burn something down. Anyways, poor Bray Wyatt through this looked like the babyface as he begs Seth not to burn down his funhouse, and Seth does it anyways.
Why are you doing this to me? Please, Seth. Please stop. Burn it down.
Then you get the whole Hell in a Cell debacle. Then they get shoehorned into having to put the title on Bray because they know that they messed up.
Yeah.
Caught in the middle of all of this is Rollins, who went from the shining beacon of hope, this guy who was going to carry Monday Night Raw, to just a fumbled character. And it was WWE who ended up doing it, because if you remember, leading into WrestleMania, Seth Rollins just being Seth Rollins was completely fine.
Yes.
By the end of the year, Seth was forced to change his character because instead of the company getting their way and making him cool, it had the opposite effect. This was detrimental to Seth, Bray, and Becky. Leading into Extreme Rules, Becky and Seth were competing in mixed tag team matches, one of which was against Maria and Mike Kanellis. During this match, Maria revealed that she was pregnant, and she just continued to insult Mike Kanellis, telling him that he wasn't man enough to get her pregnant. Vince McMahon was a big fan of these cuck storylines, so Mike Kanellis is Maria's whipping boy who's forced to get her ice cream and pickles. Then she tells Mike that she's not sure if he's the one who impregnated her in the first place, and Maria's just consistently calling Mike a loser. The whole thing underlyingly is a motivation tactic. At one point, Maria says that the father is actually Ricochet. Then later on, Maria says that the dad to her unborn child is Rusev. I want you to hold on to that bit of information because it'll become very important at the end of the video.
This is
But to get the full Vince McMahon experience, I want to backtrack to after WrestleMania 35 because a few weeks after we had the Superstar shakeup came the wildcard rule, which initially killed off the brand split. One of these superstars who took the opportunity to bounce between both Monday Night Raw and SmackDown was the best in the world, Shane McMahon. This man was the second coming of Hulk Hogan because nothing worked for him, brother. He was at the top. In 2019, this man, after winning the World Cup the year previous, was everywhere. See, they painted this thing out to be a huge ego trip for Shane, but the execution was poor to the point where it was at go away heat. We got the holy alliance of Shane McMahon and Drew McIntyre, and then the third guy would just kind of rotate. So Shane's beefing whoever he wants, particularly the top star in Roman Reigns because he punched his dad in the face. This leads to riveting television like Gary the Goat Garbett and Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre and Shane to headline Raw. The big payoff to this is having Cedric Alexander be revealed as the masked janitor the two spoke to earlier on the show, only for this to go nowhere. Very on brand with the compulsive booking I mentioned in the intro to this video. At this point, I want to kill myself. Crazier is that WWE almost put the WWE Championship on him in that summer. They were attempting to have Shane McMahon as the company's top star in 2019. Imagine Kofi losing to Shane. Genuinely, if it feels
Kofi was doomed from the jump, I guess.
like I'm being harsh in this video, ask anyone who sat through this stuff. Of course there was good in there if you look for it, but the bad outweighed the good by a landslide. It felt like we weren't watching something that was for us to enjoy, but rather just a manifestation of Vince McMahon's inside jokes and wrestling fantasies to amuse himself. Nowhere was that more evident than Ucey Hot, a take on the icy hot pain relief cream. And if I were to say Usos and Revival in today's WWE, that's something that's going crazy. That could have been one of the most competitive tag rivalries. It could have been something that rejuvenated the tag division and gave us in-ring epics. Instead, once the Usos moved over to Raw from SmackDown, they started to troll the Revival, saying that they were boring. Later, they found Dash Wilder shaving Scott Dawson's back. A few weeks later, the Usos snuck into the Revival's locker room, and I guess they replaced their cream with Ucey Hot. This cream was applied in their southern regions, and to the pinpoint second, the Usos knew exactly when this cream would activate. So you get a visual of the Revival wiping their ass on the canvas, scratching their balls, itching, scratching, clawing, just trying.
And this is why they left. Right here. This is why they left. Because of this. Vince didn't give a fuck about tag team wrestling. This is why they left. And it's understandable why. I'm not even mad at him for leaving. Because this was hot garbage.
To get the Ucey Hot to melt away. On the stage are the Usos, who tell them that the only way to fix this is water. Water which the Revival then pour onto their cream. And this only makes things worse. The Usos tell them they were supposed to drink it, not pour it on their little Uce. Speaking of Uce, let's talk about the honorary Uce, Sami Zayn. Now, I want you guys to really take in just how much BS this man went through before finally getting his big break and finally becoming what he is today. He was comedic relief, he was given terrible gimmicks, he was never given a chance to shine. Much like the year beforehand, WWE again tried to hit the reset button with Sami Zayn. They gave him a brand new character in which he would make fun of the fans, saying that they were toxic, and it was these exact types of characters that fans were just tired of and didn't want. He'd come out on the weekly saying that the fans were the problem, and it never really amounted to anything aside from the electric chair segment. In the summer, Raw became unhinged. Matches were restarted as 2 out of 3 falls matches because Vince McMahon didn't want wrestling during commercial breaks. We got the 24/7 championship, and all hell just completely broke loose. 2019 was definitely not as bad as 2018 Monday Night Raw. But how did we end the year? We ended the year in the most WWE 2019 way possible. If you've sat through this, if you've relived the pain with me, there's just one more storyline that we have to go through. See, this was a year where Raw went heavy into the relationship drama, good or bad. Seth and Becky, Renee and Drake, Maria and Mike, and then to end the year, Bobby and Lana. One Raw out of nowhere, Lana appeared on stage during one of Rusev's matches, and then she randomly started to make out with Bobby Lashley. So the next week, Lashley interrupts Rusev from Rusev's home, wearing his robe in his bed, ready to, reverse the name Lana. So why was Lana doing this? What was the reason for her infidelity? Well, she told us that Rusev only wanted one thing. He only wanted one thing in the kitchen, in the morning, in the afternoon, at the doctor's office, at WrestleMania, and that for YouTube purposes was Machka Town appointments. So she tells us that Rusev is addicted to sex. So Lana said that Rusev just wanted to put a baby inside of her, to which Rusev's response was no, he could never. And poor Rusev, talk about a guy who got fumbled by the WWE. He's forced to say that he loves Lana and he's just trying to get her back, and he just looks like a complete geek. Then Lana out of the blue says that Rusev cheated on her. Out comes Lashley and the two beat down Rusev. Now, if you remember earlier, Rusev was at one point revealed to be the father of Maria's unborn child. There's no mention of that anywhere in this storyline. So naturally, all right, wrestling angle, they fight, pretty commonplace. That's the whole basis of this thing, right? Lashley, though, can't fight because he's torn his groin doing, things to Lana. The writing of the storyline then suggests that the truth is that Lana cheated on Rusev and now she's pregnant, but it's actually Rusev's kid because Lana's 9 weeks pregnant but has only been seeing Bobby Lashley for 7. Lana then says, psych, I don't actually have a kid inside of me, and gets a restraining order in which Rusev can't get within 90 miles of her. She butchers this because she actually means 90 feet. The whole angle is just bad, but it's made 15.5 times more worse by A, Lana losing her accent, and B, her awful acting.
Rusev cheated on me.
What?
The year on Monday Night Raw comes to an end with a wedding angle. Lana and Lashley are going to be married happily ever after, and all of this is happening while the people who play Rusev and Lana are actually married to one another, now made worse by the fact that the two are divorced. Paul Heyman, genuinely, what were you trying to do here? But okay, things are about to end. The year is almost over. Lana, Lashley, you're married, unless anyone objects. And then out of nowhere comes Liv Morgan, who stops the wedding because the love of her life was right there, and she wasn't talking about Lashley, she was talking about Lana. Terrible acting from Liv, who is in this storyline for all of 5 minutes only to never be brought in again. This ends with a brawl between Liv and Lana, and it's the WWE. You knew the second that you saw a big ass cake that Rusev was inside, and that was your lasting image of Monday Night Raw from 2019. Genuinely, how did Bobby Lashley recover from this? A year and a bit later, he became the WWE champion after being in 2 of the absolute worst storylines in just as many years. May Lashley's sisters and Lana and Lashley rest in peace. Now, 2020 didn't get any better, but that's a story for another time. I've already spent a month subjecting myself to awful television. If I did 2020, I think I'd actually go insane. So in conclusion, Raw during these 2 years was very bad. Authority figures running absolutely wild, repeat matches, the inability to build new stars, the WWE being adamant about their way being the right way, some awful storylines that led to one of the worst time periods in the Red Brand's history. See you guys.
Factuals. Simple. This was some of the worst television. There was some good stuff on there, but like I said at the beginning of this video, the good stuff would only last for a little bit and then it would be butchered. They would destroy whatever good stuff they had. They would destroy it very quickly. Comment down below. Let me know. what was like the worst moment from 2018 through 2019 for WWE, just as a whole? What was the worst moment you can just be like, oh my God, what are we watching? For me, it's how they ruined the Fiend, bro. They ruined the Fiend in the Seth Rollins feud. That shit was awful. It was bad. They ruined them by even setting that matchup. That was one of the worst. That is the worst Hell in a Cell I have ever seen in my life. Awful. But y'all let me know what's the worst moment from this year, from 2018 through 2019, these years for WWE television, bro. I appreciate all the love and support. Road to 150K. Appreciate y'all kicking it with me. See you on the next one. Peace.